Welcome back to Atlantic Filmmakers, our final segment of this program with filmmaker Paul Kimball. And Paul, before we start about talking about your current work, Eternal Kiss, you mentioned your documentary work on UFOs and the paranormal, and I know that that's a topic that you know a lot about and are passionate about. How important was it to be able to have an experience to do some documentaries on that subject matter, knowing that you do have a vested interest and somewhat of a curiosity about it? Does that kind of passion and interest help when you're making a documentary?
Sure. I didn't really have a vested interest in UFOs until I started making the film. I mean, my uncle Stan Friedman, who is my uncle, I'd known him for years, but the UFO thing was a very much peripheral thing. And then when I said, but he would make an interesting subject for a film. Once I get into it, I became more interested in it. So there's a lot of people who think I've been a UFO buff or whatever for decades, and the truth is it's really only been about 10 years. And I decided to take a serious look at it, the science behind it, you know, the real cases as opposed to all the crazy ones you hear about. And there is a core phenomenon there that is of interest to me, the same way a lot of the paranormal stuff does, ghosts, anything. All of it's of interest to me. It doesn't define my life. I don't spend all my time reading about it. But I do keep a blog. I write about it occasionally when I have some spare time. And but always, I try always at least to avoid the personalities and, you know, this guy said that and I hate this guy. And a lot of that goes on in those fields, and really just focus on cases and evidence and data and making a case that there's something that science should look into here, that they might learn something from it. And now more and more scientists are coming around to that point of view. People like Michio Kaku saying, yeah, you know what, maybe there is something to UFOs that we might be able to learn something from by looking into more closely. I don't think, and nor would I advocate, that the scientific establishment, whatever that is, should take billions of dollars from research for a cure for cancer to investigate the UFO phenomenon. No. But if some private citizen or group of citizens wanted to put a couple $1 million to create an investigative team that would go out and do what Project Blue Book used to do in the 60s, that idea of investigating sightings, sure, why not? You know, if a rich multi-billionaire computer guy has that kind of money, absolutely.
Do you think the future in film, we've got a couple minutes left, but do you think you might like to do some more work, you know, along those lines, shining a light on that subject?
Probably not. I think in terms of filmmaking, I've done 4 docs loosely related to UFOs, and I did a series related to ghosts. I think for now I've said all that I would have to say about that kind of thing. Having said that, developing a new show about ghosts, but for an American network. But, you know, if somebody pulls a truckload of money up to me, I'll do anything. As I've said before, I'll do porn. Wouldn't even have to be a truckload. Just
a little.
Just an old Chevy with maybe something in the trunk.
A per diem.
Yeah, a per diem. But yeah, you know, it's not at the height of what I want to do right now. You know, priorities change. But at the moment, features, drama, that's what I'm looking at. And if there's a documentary subject that comes along that I haven't done yet, and there's a couple that we're working on, you know, areas that I haven't looked at. That's the other thing about constantly moving around. You just do it because you don't want to get bored. You know, you want new challenges. So to make another documentary about UFOs, at the moment I've done it. To make another feature film about vampires, no, I've done it. Let's do something different. So let's mix it up and keep it fresh.
Let's talk a little bit about Eternal Kiss, your feature film that was in this year's Atlantic Film Festival. What did you want people to think, other than that was great, but what mood or look were you going for when you did this? And you know, were you satisfied with it when it was all said and done?
Well, it goes back to your earlier question, what would you change? And there's 50 things that I'd change. So am I satisfied? No, but yes. You know, you learn to live with it. What would I want people to take from it? First of all, despite what the advertising might say, it's not a vampire film. So if you're expecting fangs, blood, gore, and heads blowing up, that's somebody else's film. This was meant to be very old school and sort of talk about, there are vampires in it, but sort of talk about the question, what's important, what's worth sacrificing for? King, country, ideals, philosophies. I don't think it's worth sacrificing your life for any of those things. At the end of the day, to me, love is what is worth sacrificing for. The only thing worth truly sacrificing for. And so that's what the film, I think, talks about, is this idea of, are you willing to make sacrifices because you love somebody? It just so happens that a couple of the people that might be loving people are vampires. But, you know, in the bad vampire, what does evil represent? Well, it represents greed and power and all the things that stand against love. So it's very much, as somebody said to me last night, it's kind of a chick flick. But I like chick flicks because I think chick flicks speak to what's really important to all of us so-called chick flicks, which is emotions and love and just relationships between people, which sounds like a really lame way to describe a vampire film. So you probably won't see it on the horror film festival because they'll see this and go, oh my God, what, do you have an axe? Which we do. We actually have somebody, their head gets chopped off. But other than that, you know, it's more about people and their relationships than it is gore and violence.
Well, I certainly appreciate the invite that I got to the very first screening of it when it was all said and done, and I absolutely enjoyed it. Paul, we thank you so much for your time here today. We wish you continued success. Great to have you back on the program. And a little tidbit for folks, you may not know this, but he is a Reach for the Top savant. So if you have an opportunity, Google Paul Kimball and Reach for the Top, and the school again was?
Prince Andrew High, first dog in space, Laika.
He does really well. He's amazing, actually. That's Atlantic Filmmakers for this week. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.